How would I describe my past in 10 words or less? I only need to say 3. Ignorant, blind, lost. I could write a memoir hours long if I described the shadow of my past in complete detail. Throughout my 17 and a half years, I was never the go-getter. You could have called me somewhat of a pyro in the aspect that I set fire to any and all change that presented itself to me, slowly burning away any chance to see or even comprehend a healthy lifestyle. My parents, both by blood and commitment, always encouraged and even put me in the best position to succeed. But regardless of the extra push, I never put myself in drive. Instead, I closely held stubborn beliefs that I was more wise and intelligent than anyone, and that only kept my hand glued to the e-brake. With time, the inferno of failure only grew, almost as if it had bathed in gasoline. Prior to my time at Youth Challenge, I spent much of my young life at war with myself, being bombarded with the standards society held for adolescents. Don't have the latest clothes? You're poor. You enjoy different music than me? You have no taste. You have no taste. You don't walk, talk, eat, or act like me. I'm better than you, and you are nothing. I was prisoner of war to these beliefs, swallowed by the standards set by those more socially accepted than me. Never good enough. For most kids I grew up around, I wasn't good enough. I went through elementary school under a constant hail of bullets. Anyone who could get a shot off did. The verbal hail of lead seemed to rain in a non-stop cycle, forever pouring down around me in an attempt to keep me enclosed in a wall of shallow emotions. Middle school wasn't much different. I lived in everlasting fear of being robbed of my self-esteem and trapped behind bars made of my own conflicts. My grades began to decline in a mixture of incompetence and incompetence, and I continued to be unaccepted. Then, after I graduated the 8th grade, my family and I decided to move to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It was the summer of 2012, on the morning of July 5th, that my Aunt Patty and I began our 14-hour drive to our new home, where I hoped to finally learn to belong. My uncle and little sister Shiner stayed behind in Wisconsin to finish gathering our belongings and tie off loose ends. I love to think of my sister's name and the contradiction that comes with it. There are many things I could say about her, and Shy is definitely not amongst them. I could say fun-loving and wacky, but I could also say this for the rest of my family as well, just as I could say taken for granted or broken trust. There are many things I wish I could say for so much lost and obscure time, but no one here has the patience to listen to my apology, so I will put it in simply 2 short words. I'm sorry. Unconsciously, I've said this a millennia of times, but I am ready to show you in the immediate future just how sincere I am for the way I've been. After all, my need to prove those words are the reason I stand behind the capability of today. After school had started, it only took me a week to find someone who embraced my unique sense of humor, abnormal attitude, and my less than impressive attire. His name was Keon Law, and like me, he was starting out his high school career alone and new. After I approached him, we seemed to just simply click, and soon I found myself at his doorstep every day to hang out. And before I knew it, 2 or 3 weeks of this routine had passed. Every day of school came and went, and when that bell rang at 2:45, I roamed the hallways in search of Keon for something to do. I recall one day, I couldn't find him among the faces of people dismissing themselves from campus, so I decided to just show up at his apartment. I faintly remember the details, but I do remember sitting on his couch and experimenting with marijuana for the first time. This was my freshman year, mind you. My aunt called me shortly after our session, and I remember this was white as snow. She told me I needed to be home immediately, and despite my best attempt to evade it, I ended up at home within the hour. I can still see her face when I think of that night. When she looked into my eyes, all I saw was disappointment. That night ended the moment she picked me up, just as my new lifestyle had begun in tragedy when I let that smoke fill my lungs. From that day of fate to another 5.5 months ago, my only goal was to get high. I drank, smoked, and did anything I possibly could to feel right again. It wasn't until 2 years later that I would finally start to be punished for my drug, alcohol, and tobacco use. I was caught multiple times with everything from electronic and regular cigarettes to pot, pills, and other questionable substances. I was with the wrong crowd at the wrong time, as I always have been. My wrist was slapped with a pair of handcuffs, as well as MIPs and a possession and frequenting charge. My extreme acts of ignorance landed me in a juvenile detention center, and my first experience would not be my last. After 2 days, I was released on probation, and back to my mischievous habits I went. For another 10 months, these events would continue to trap me in a black and elusive pit, which looked too deep to escape from. I had report cards written with Fs and days on days of missing attendance. Top that with a monthly dirty UA, and I had myself a triple layered chocolate cake of failure. With every bite of it, I grew more and more sick of its taste, but at the same time, I was addicted. The only thing I focused on were glass bottles and glass pipes. It was only a matter of time before my arrogance would completely win me over and I self-destructed into a permanent state of nuclear fallout. Only by the grace of the American flag was I saved. Saved by an ally who I had always looked at as a hindrance. But in the real world, his reinforcements are responsible for the ceasefire within me. That ally, surprisingly, but not surprisingly, is my probation officer, Mike DeGraw. And with all 205 bones in my body, I say thank you. If you had not have shown me this program, I would still be incarcerated in my more than questionable tendencies and enclosed within 4 walls. Through our crusade at the academy, I admit, there have been many days that I would have just wanted to walk away from it all. But I, just like all of you, stayed true to our commitments and managed to keep it together. And with that, I must say to you all, congratulations. I am sure we can all mentally revisit our first steps on campus. For some, those steps are distant and maybe even irrelevant. But for others, they are now a key memory to our past, where they are drawn in stone deep in the vaults of their minds. But even more important to us than our arrival are the memories we will paint together in the final hours we share, leaving our mark on the canvas of our peers, cadre, and even the stage I stand on. All 103 cadets here today, and those who have come before us, have spent 5.5 months thriving and resisting change, as well as our own sweat. Accepting this challenge was the beginning to our crucible, and I confidently say that today is our victory. We have earned this victory through our journey of 50,000 miles, and for most, equal amount of push-ups. I have witnessed some of my fellow scouts spend their expedition in a dead sprint, refusing to stop for a breath or a break. Others, like myself, were winded before we even reached the mile mark, where we all eventually strove to at least a jog and caught up with the rest to carry the torch of success here this morning to ignite the forever burning ember that is our future. It was here at the Youth Challenge that I learned to appreciate every meal, to love and value even the shortest trip away from home. I have also found that being picky has held me back from experiencing how delicious different foods can be. But the DFAC did not just serve me with an improvement of variety for taste, it served me with an event to look forward to. 3 times a day, all 7 days a week. And you can't forget that look of discomfort cadets gave each other in their trays when someone didn't finish their meal. Jaw dropped, that 1,000-yard stare. Like, what? Classical stuff, right? We all made the same annoyed look whenever we stood for our marathon mounts, but I never let it inside, never let it get to me. Because here at the IUICA, we have all learned that life will go on, with or without you, so it is only best to live and let die. There are many changes the program has helped me embrace that I am forever grateful I had these skills presented to me. I have learned to conquer my temptation and not let testosterone get the best of me. Patience, control, restraint, integrity, courage, confidence, commitment, structure. Characteristics of a cadet who now refuses to be mundane or just average. For the first time in my life, I have seen and carried success, and I owe that to the trials I have endured during the residential phase. My mind was constantly in an endless game of tug of war throughout it, though. My selfish desire for family and freedom always pulled and heaved at my urgent need to change myself. During these past 22 weeks, I have also learned to help others and accept help as well. Whether it was a tutor or a shoulder to cry on, I was there for all of my brothers, but I was often the student, being taught what I could to understand my schoolwork. Cadet Senior Airman Dallas Hyde. Thanks to your amazing dedication and countless hours of study, I am more than prepared to obliterate any math equation I might see in my future. You have no idea how grateful I am for your help, and I am beyond proud to call you my friend. Cadet Papillon and Cadet Newman from the Axe brought me a good laugh when I wanted it. They were always there to keep my mind sweet when I felt sour. And then there's Cadet Logan Edward Newman. We share the same middle name, as well as some of the same struggles. During hard times, he helped me pull through with only minor scratches, just as I had tried to do for him. The things he told me, the knowledge of what real misfortune was, pitied even my darkest hours. I know I have found a real friend in you, and to everybody else in front of me today, I must thank you as well for being here. I haven't had a C or above on a report card since I was in 7th grade. It has been 4 long years since I've been able to say that I am proud of my grades, whether they're all A's or not. I don't have an academic excellence award. It's not better. And I definitely do not have a 4.0. But I have progressed. No failing grades. I've never once in my whole life been able to say that. No failing grades. Like the ring of that in my head. I suppose there's a first time for everything. It's just like going out in public and calling a waitress a ma'am without even trying. But hey, I guess this place did teach me something. And although the academy will be amongst our past in only a few long hours, I expect a number of us to wake in the morning and reminisce on our encounters throughout the last 154 days. Assuming that your first thought isn't a bad annoyance at the idea that you were waking up at 500. There's a habit I bet none of us would mind breaking. Those short but pleasant runs through piers with my brothers, the Scouts. Service to community projects, acclamation graduation, the end before it even started. I've never experienced plain vanilla ice cream be so satisfying. But it is only puny and pale compared to the cool, creamy triumph that is day 155. It is today that the real challenge begins. And once again I say, challenge accepted.